On my end, it looks like we're good. Obviously, we'll give it a few minutes and let people come in. But you seen anything, Reese? Okay. It's there. Cool. Okay. Heather, will y'all put Reese, Charlotte, and Chance downstairs? About ready to choke both of them for eating my dinner. It's my fault for leaving it up. I knew those giants could get to it.
Oh.
Can't leave anything on the countertops of those two, man.
You tell Tiffany what happened to your supper.
So we're making taco soup, and I asked Reese to brown the beef, and I said, take half the beef and set aside just in a container, and I'll eat that. Put the other in the taco soup. And the guy that's doing my basement bar just put cabinets in down there. So Heather was coming in. I saw her at the bottom of the stairs. I was like, hey, look at the cabinets. She's like, oh, cool. So I went down there to see the cabinets with her and came back to an empty bowl on the floor and two happy dogs.
We got one that will do the same thing. We have to watch her really closely.
I'm not picking you up much on mic, Tiff.
On audio?
Yeah, I hear you, but it's low. Told you I needed a case of those, Seth. They're going too fast.
Which ones?
The new gold, man. I'm just going through it like it's something on the shelf at ABC store.
Hey, Brandon, is this better or no?
Hey.
Is that any better?
Yeah, if you just, I guess just kind of be mindful of it and speak up a little bit, and I can hear you and definitely hear you. It just seems like you're a little bit away from the mic.
Okay.
So, man, I'm glad y'all both were able to jump on. This was Tiffany's idea. I think it was a great idea. I don't know if you guys want to jump into the Tiffany picks. If y'all want to talk gold stuff, or if y'all just want to talk some baseline stuff. I've got some other questions that I was going to ask for sure. So
I think
we can start out however y'all want.
Yeah, the gold is the hot topic, right? Like that's the one that everybody wants. That's the one that is super limited, and everybody was waiting for it. So I think that the gold is probably the standard and where to start. So,
well, all right, then we'll dig right into that. So, I mean, obviously, you guys know that this was what we came to talk about tonight, but we've got some other things. And the premise of the conversation was just to talk to you, Seth, and figure out a little bit about, how you've learned what barrels you need to keep. So I know we've talked about it in the past that when, early on you do barrel picks, you'd let people go through multiple barrels, and a lot of times there was some pretty good whiskey that got out. And I think the story with this gold one was very similar to that, but probably one of the last, because you've changed that up a little bit. But it blows my mind because I can drink a 48-month Dettling and be ecstatic. For you to be able to look at a 48-month or a 52-month and be like, it needs more time. I mean, tell us a little bit about how you've learned that over the past 10 or 11 years and what you're looking for.
Yeah, I think basically it's just experience over time, making mistakes, lots and lots of mistakes. I've had a couple barrels go out that shouldn't have gone out because they just weren't ready. And I've had a lot of barrels go out that were exceptional, and they probably shouldn't have gone out. And then you also have barrels like whenever we were really having a lot of trouble, one of the many times, I had to sell some young whiskey there in the early days just to be able to keep going. And some of that stuff was really exceptional, and it just needed to be left alone. And one of those things. I regret it, but we wouldn't be here today if we didn't do it.
For sure.
We don't have any of the, we don't have investors and all that kind of stuff. So I have to pay for it in order for it to exist. But having said that, we've been doing it for a long time. We're starting our 12th year, and I've learned a thing or two. And one of the things that we're doing now is we're sampling 100% of the barrels. So it's a tremendous amount of work, but it's very important work. Like a prime example, we have during the barrel shortage 2022, when everything just like hit everybody upside the head all at once. I had to buy some barrels from a cooperage that I'm not familiar with. And, I don't take that lightly, because that could go any one of a number of ways, but I was just stuck. You can't keep making whiskey if you doesn't have somewhere to go. It has to go somewhere.
Right.
And once your tanks are full, you're screwed. So basically that's what happened. And I bought barrels, and we filled them and kept going. And here recently we went and started sampling those. And it's not that there was too much of a problem with the whiskey, but the color wasn't correct. The profile was not something I really recognized necessarily. And, just kind of an incomplete picture of whiskey. And it was, 2 to 3 years old. So I had plenty of time to do something about it. And that's what we started on today. Is all of those barrels are being pulled. They're all being consolidated, and they're going into a very specific new oak for the second oaking, based on my analysis of that whiskey. And it's going to be really good whiskey. It's going to have time. It's going to need time. So I'm hoping we can be somewhere around that 6-year mark, as kind of our starting point. And that's going to take a few years to get there.
Right.
Because I just like where the whiskey goes. Just as time goes on, I like the older whiskey better. So for me, it's a personal preference too. And as you get older, we're gonna lose some customers, and we're gonna pick up some customers, because as the profile changes and becomes more complex and more oak, and it becomes more of a whiskey lover's whiskey at that point. It's maybe not something you would take to, like we did an event this week at Alice Beach. They have a wine festival there, and we did their bourbon, beer, and butts, and we sampled out. And, we had the bottled and bond there, and just got rave reviews, which with the general public. But at the end of the day, that's kind of not my target. Right. If that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense.
I'd rather us lose some customers and gain the ones that are just super crazy about whiskey. So that's just kind of like, that guides me in terms of what am I doing with these barrels, because I want them to have a certain impact in the marketplace. And as time goes on, we're kind of discovering what that is. So like 270 is a great example of that. That's one of those barrels that I was very intimate with that barrel, like very intimate. I had that barrel probably starting at around year 3. I had sampled that barrel all the time. through its entire life. And I was really sad to see it go. But that's one of those barrels that was complex when it was younger, but it wasn't complex in a cohesive way. It was sort of disjointed. And when you
Now I'm
see
starting to
what
understand what you mean when you say disjointed, because you've said that to me several times, and I'm like, what does he mean?
well, just imagine if the flavors are just kind of like bouncing around on your palate, and you just kind of like you're trying to comprehend it. And I don't think 270 is like that now. I think 270 is one where it's changing in the glass, which is like my favorite kind of whiskey, right? The storytelling whiskeys, that as I call them, ones where the nose is changing, and the palate changes, and just more you spend time with it, you just discover new things about it, and that keeps it like super interesting. It's kind of like a great book or a great movie. If you go back to it and watch it or read it again, and you miss some things.
Yeah.
I
mean, that's a great analogy for it, for sure.
Yeah. So when you go back to it, you're like, oh, I didn't catch that little piece. And so that makes it great. Those are my favorite. And to create whiskey like that, you need, well, first of all, you have to do absolutely everything correct. The ingredients, the processes, all that has to be correct. But consolidated barrels and multiple oaks and big age, big heat, big age. That's kind of the foundation, I think, for super complex whiskey in South Alabama. And
I think that's funny when we talk about age. I had somebody make a comment about some Crittenden whiskey on one of my pages and said, you guys can have that younger stuff. Like, that's not for me. And I'm like, man, this guy's thinking, 6 years as it relates to Kentucky or Tennessee or Indiana, not relative to the South. Those numbers are exponentially different. But, Tiffany, I've never asked you, and I guess maybe other people may be interested in knowing too. How did you and Seth ever connect? Because I know you've been working with him quite some time, and it was Seth that introduced us. But apparently, you guys been doing picks with him a lot longer than I've known you.
Nope. So maybe the one thing that I have is that I just don't give a crap about anything. I'm not hesitant to just reach out and try to build a relationship and talk to people. So, you got some distilleries that'll never answer you back. You've got some people you will never hear back from. And one thing I can say about Seth is he's not that guy. Like, when he's super busy, but when he has time, like, he's going to get back to you. And so, there's a couple of distilleries that I really want to do barrel picks with. And so I try to stay involved. I try to stay engaged. I try to send additional messages and just start building a relationship. I don't think you should ask for something before you have a relationship with somebody. But my first pick ever, I've got a little bit of delay on my video feed, so I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but this had nothing to do with me. This is Jake did this pick for the human trafficking, and my buddy Joe, who's one of my Bourbon Thieves buddies, he was going on that pick. So that's how I got introduced to Dettling. I'd never had any Dettling before. This was my first one. And this was, I think, Seth, was this one of the white wheat mash bills that came out a couple of years ago, that human trafficking pick?
Yep.
Yeah, so that was my first introduction to Dettling, and it blew my mind. And that was probably March of 23, I think. And then I found a bottled and bond traveling through Kentucky that summer, picked that up, blew my mind, had to get 2 more when we passed back through at Justin's House of Bourbon. So it's just one of those things, like just talking, sending messages, just engaging about the brand, and just talking and asking, hey, what can I do to get on the list to pick a barrel? And that's it. Like, I met Seth for the first time at that barrel pick. So, and thankfully, he had reached out to me and said, do you have room on the pick team? Like, Brandon's looking to come to a pick. And I did have room. So it's just one of those things that I believe everything worked out the way it was supposed to. And we turned from being, strangers kind of showing up for that pick to, being friends now. And I think that's one thing that Seth and Vicky are about, is when you come do a pick, like, you become part of the family there. And I think that you don't get that experience at a lot of places.
No, I agree with that a ton. I mean, it's whiskey in general, right, that brings people together. But then when you've got people like Seth and Vicky that, you know, aren't mainstream and aren't commercialized, and they're not too big for their fans and their customers, it means a lot more. And I think that's what people really appreciate about Dettling whiskey. And people keep wondering, you know, why do you show Dettling so much love? And it's like, you need to meet them. You need to be a part of it and see, because you're not getting that from some of these others. Seth, I'm gonna start asking some of these questions because we're getting quite a bit of them. But
Well, we got
James,
one on the screen.
how many barrels do you have aging, and do you have a good feeling on the ideal age in Escambia County, which you and I talked about that a little bit earlier? I think we're all dying to know that number.
Well, we're filling around our 1300th barrel, something like that. We probably have 800 or so on site. As far as age, every year older the whiskey's gotten, I've changed my opinion about what the ideal age is going to be. So I think, you know, it was a big deal for us to get to 4-year minimum. Like that was a really difficult thing to accomplish. And then for me to decide that actually 6 years is probably closer to ideal. But, you know, well, you guys sitting there looking at a 7-year, and it's like, it's pretty good.
It is,
So,
man. It is. And I don't see any reason you would stop.
I just think that these barrels are going to have to, I think they're going to have to kind of communicate with us as time goes on, and kind of tell us, you know, when they need to stay, when they need to go. And to the extent that it's possible. So if I can get the minimum age to 6, then I'm going to avoid some of the issues with like barrel picks, taking something that's prime and taking it at, you know, 4.5 years old, when reality is, man, at 6 it would just be like blow people's minds, you know?
Right.
And that's really painful, because I want it so bad to be able to get to that point, but it's just going to take time, you know. It's just part of it. It's just part of the process. It's very frustrating. That's why they said, I'm the distiller doesn't want to sell his whiskey. Well, it's, you know, it's like, it's true. I don't want to sell it. I want it to keep and develop, and then when it does leave, it's like super special. And I want all of them to be super special, and that's just not how whiskey is. But I'm damn sure going to try. You know,
you're getting there, man. I had your 22 or 21 month out that I'll never throw away the other night, showing Heather comparisons of, you know, where you kind of started and where you are now. She's like, oh dear God, like those are two totally different whiskeys, you know? And I'm like, they are same distillate for the most part, but I mean, you guys have learned a ton.
A ton.
A lot of it the hard way, unfortunately. You know, you and I talked some about some of the hardship that you guys have had and how close you've come to, you know, having to almost give it up. And I guess I'm very thankful for one that you guys never did, but I don't guess I really know the struggles of the pain and the gut wrenching thoughts of, man, this might all go away, right? To you know, you saw it through to today, and it is what it is, and it's growing, it's huge, and people are crazy about it. Obviously, there's a lot of people that just don't know, but time will tell with them. Tiffany, Chase was asking if you had your own store YouTube channel. Said you like good whiskey, but he's not familiar with you.
Yeah, people, I get that question all the time, like through my website, social media, a lot of times, especially if I'm put a pick out or promoting a pick or anything like that. I don't have a store. I actually work for a distillery here in South Carolina, so I don't have a store. No, I do have a YouTube channel. I don't know that I have put anything on it in 2 years, because I started doing some contract work for a different distillery and then went to work for a distillery. And as Seth can tell you, when you work for a distillery and you're in the industry, you sometimes don't get to do all the fun stuff. So Sometimes, you know, doing these videos and editing them and everything else, you get bogged down and you don't have time for it. So the last couple of things I've done, I think I've done on everybody else's channel. We haven't uploaded anything. But you talked about the whole thing, you know, where what they started from. I found an old picture from Alabama visit a couple of years ago. We went into Costco and there was the green bottle of Dettling, and I think it was the 24 month. And I'm still probably maybe a year, if that, into bourbon at that point. And I looked at it and I was like, I don't know anything about this brand. I don't know who it is. And I hate it that I didn't buy it, because obviously it's a piece of history like I would love to have. But you talk about the people that tried that bourbon early on and maybe people that wrote them off early on. This is why you have to have patience. You have to give the craft brands time. And the one thing, you know, a lot of people go for clear spirits to try to pay the bills. And Seth said, we're not doing that. Like, we're going all in, and we're going to be patient. We're going to wait it out. And, you know, being in South Carolina, we have a big advantage from a heat aspect as well. So, like, we understand, you know, we don't get that heat that Seth does. I could tell you, because I remember that barrel pick trip and how hot we all were. But, you know, we don't get that kind of heat. But we get at least 10 to 15 degrees higher year-round average temperature. So I just don't think it takes us quite as long to make good bourbon. You know, if you're trying to compare age statements to Kentucky bourbon, it's never going to add up, because Kentucky bourbon takes so much longer to age because of the temperature difference. So stop paying attention to age statements and just start tasting the whiskey, and then taste it over time. I have several brands where I own younger bottles and now bottles that are getting older. And to me, like, I try to hang on to them because I appreciate the journey. I appreciate everything that's gone into it. And once you see the behind the scenes of what's gone into it, it just gives you a whole different perspective on what it takes to make what's in the bottle. And sitting in front of me right now, I've got 11 different Dettling bottles, and I've got everything from, you know, bottled in bond to picks that, you know, the standard picks that Seth does, all the way up to the 82 month. And it's such a variety. And the average person that may look at something that says 48 months, they just assume that it's not going to taste good. And I'll never forget, and probably can't see it too well, like on the camera, but the first time I got the bottled in bond, and, you know, I couldn't believe the color that you could get from that time. So, you know, be patient, give it a shot. If it's not great when a distillery gets going, give them a shot again. Don't just completely write them off. That's my soapbox for tonight.
For sure. And with the bottle and bond, Seth, you know, you and I were talking the other day about entry proof and, you know, how you manage your proofs and the reason why you do that. But I would imagine staying at 100 proof for a bottle and bond, it's beneficial for you to have your proof points where they are, because your bottle and bond has so much flavor. It's not like you had to add a ton of water to it and really dilute the flavor. You really still get that same flavor profile. It's just not quite as rich as the cask.
Yeah, and it shows the promise of the cask strength whiskey. And so we do have lower entry proofs, does make it more expensive to make. It does make a far superior bottled and bond product, but it's kind of one of those things where if you know whiskey and you drink the bottled and bond, you get the impression that it should have been cask strength, because if it's this good at 100, then it was probably a lot better at cask strength, and it, you know, it is actually. So that's why I had to kill it. The bonded was just selling too much, way too much sales, way too much purchase order demand. And every time a barrel was used for that line, that barrel's off the board.
For sure.
It's gone. And I didn't present it in its ultimate light, right? I gave you a bonded, and the whiskey is better and more interesting as single barrel cask strength. So I didn't do the right thing for the whiskey. So that's why I had to kill it.
Well,
you know,
I get it. I get it.
And when Prohibition went out, the same things were happening in the industry. Like, you know, people were restarting and they sold some younger stuff, and that got, you know, that little period was was brief, and they finally got into a sweet spot in terms of their age for their climates, and it's just the same thing, but it's just with the craft distilleries. They do need your support, and I think there's enough craft distilleries out and have been in operation long enough that the cream's starting to rise to the top, and you're starting to figure out who's really worth putting your time and energy into. I like Peerless a lot. I've been drinking a lot of Peerless products here lately.
That's actually what I warmed up with tonight, was the Peerless Double
The
Oak.
Double Oak?
It's the most similar to Dettling for me. This is not the rye. I haven't opened the rye one yet, but I have it. I like Peerless. They're good.
I do too. I was drinking the Double Oak rye this morning with the Spillway guys, and it's just a really promising whiskey. And there's some things that I would do differently, and I'm sure that's normal, but I really like it. Like, the color's beautiful, the nose was good, and I imagine that whiskey for certain customers that are just accustomed to your just kind of run of the mill bourbon, Kentucky bourbon type stuff, that whiskey's maybe a little bold, but I don't know. Like the Woodford Double Oak and the Double Oak, those are also really promising. It's astonishing that they're selling that at 90 proof, which is madness, but they know what sells on the golf course, I guess.
That's it. That's exactly, and it stretches it out further. We had a question here.
The cast strength, it would be amazing,
right? I would think so. Chris was asking, do you ever go back to that first barrel?
Nah, it's not any good.
I tell that story all the time.
I tricked the angels on that one.
I always, and I know people that hear me get tired of hearing me tell that story, but I remember trying this bottle when it first came out, and I had such high hopes because you had done the rum a little bit before you got into the bourbon, and I really liked the rum, and so when this came out, I was really excited. Obviously, knew that you had flirted with some stuff back in high school, and so I was excited. I wanted to support it, and I got it, and I'm just like, man, I'm newer to whiskey, but this has been years ago, but it just wasn't for me. And I remember texting you and being like, man, that's not quite there, and I think it was a real bold move. Like, you were kind of there where you had to do something, right? You don't want to source. You've got some whiskey that is marketable. It's not gonna, like any whiskey, it's not gonna hit everybody's palate, but it'll sell, and it did sell enough to keep you afloat. Thankful for that, right? Because if I'd ever known that this was going to yield these,
well,
I probably bought 10 cases of it to help support. Right?
How painful would that have been? That knowledge, because my back was against the wall. So if I had known how good this whiskey was going to be, I don't know what would have happened. Kind of glad I didn't know. But Christoph said, what did I learn from the first barrel? Learned a lot about the first barrel, but one of the things is I had one of the early fermentations, I got an infection in it, and it resulted in an organic acid. And that organic acid, when combined with ethanol, makes all natural cherry flavoring. So the way food flavoring works is you're combining ethanol and organic acids. So they can make something that tastes like blueberries. You just have to know what pieces to put together, and it's all natural. It's not really blueberries or cherries or whatever, right? But it's considered all natural. So the flavors, when the flavor industry that's how they're making flavors. And so in my first barrel, I made all natural cherry flavor. So if you want to guess what that whiskey tastes like, it's, yeah, tastes like a cherry, like a, I don't know, cherry candy or something.
Gotcha.
I'm making it sound good, and it isn't, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm making it sound way better than it is. It's not. It's not pleasant. It's a very strange, weird, odd thing to put in your mouth. And so the Angels are drinking it, and that's fine. That's what that barrel's going to do. It's just going to sit there. We had Whiskey Lure here this last week.
He passed through. Tiffany.
Yeah. Tiffany, have you talked to Drew?
We've talked a little bit. Yeah, I was sad because he said that you guys talked for like 4 hours, but didn't really record anything. And I was like, come on, that was probably
We didn't record anything, and oh, did we get into it? We really had an epic conversation, and like Drew has researched all this stuff that we all think is true, and it's not. And he just kept slaying these dragons. Yes, I will be in Spillway at the April event. And I was like, what are you going to tell me next? Colonel Taylor didn't have anything to do with the Bald and Bond Act. He's like, funny you bring that up. And I'm like, no. He's like, yep. And so he tells me the story. He's totally researched it. He's got it all. Like, he has the magazine articles and court filings, and like, he has all kinds. He's got it all. And all this stuff that we think we know and that we repeat. I repeat. God, how many times have I told the story? A bunch. And it's just totally incorrect.
So I don't know how many people that are listening know who Drew is. But if you guys don't follow Whiskey Lore, you should check out his podcast. You should check out the books he's written. The most recent one that Seth is referencing is he wrote a book basically busting a ton of the myths in the whiskey industry. And all he does is research, like he just researches everything to no end. He's written several books. He's an awesome guy. He's actually here in South Carolina. We finally met in person last November, and then he just came up and did an interview at the distillery I work for a couple of weeks ago as well. But if you guys don't follow Drew, you got to check him out, buy his books. Like, he is a wealth of knowledge. And it's somebody that, we all get frustrated because every day we see it on the message boards. We see it on social media. We see people posting stuff, bourbon can only be made in Kentucky, like just stuff that we know is absolute nonsense. So there's so much out there that even still, like Seth said, stuff that we all thought was accurate and apparently is not. So if you haven't checked him out, definitely check out that book. It's fantastic.
He's writing a new one, and that one's going to be epic.
So this is the William Allen from the Hollow Creek where Tiffany works. Y'all can see the color on that, but they're doing good stuff over there too. Small organization.
That is dark.
It is. I see Drew catching a lot of fire on social media from some different groups right now over the 𝒕𝒊𝒏𝒈 24 label or something. But I guess when you are who he is and doing the things that he does, there's going to be some people that are going to dig in, and if you slip any, they're going to fire at you. So it's to be expected.
Right.
I'm sure he knows how to counter it as well.
Oh yeah.
You gotta be able to take the arrows. It's okay. Drew's heart's in the right place, and he is, when he's writing a book, he's not just telling you his opinion. Everything is sourced. All the information is there, where if you want to find out where something came from, you can look in the back of the book and you can actually go find that newspaper article or whatever and go back and actually look and see what he's referring to and how he's piecing these things together. And it's just remarkable. We had a ball. I learned a lot. But one of the things that he was telling me though, which is cool, is I have said this very publicly many times, that I made the first bourbon in Alabama history. Not that being the first of something is really that big of a deal, honestly.
Kind of is.
Well, I don't think it is. However, he was able to articulate and confirm, based on all of his research, that in fact we did make the first barrel of bourbon in Alabama history.
Very cool.
And so a couple other people that want to claim it or want to pretend like it, it's inconvenient for their marketing, they'll just have to deal with it, because it did happen. And I thought that was cool. I was a little nervous and was like, well, I'll research that, because he was slaying dragons like left and right. I'm like, oh my God, what's this guy fixing to tell me? But yeah, it's just really interesting. I like his approach to history, where you just go and just document and just put into hard work. He's just really hardworking, and then finds these great things. So yeah, his books, can't recommend them highly enough. And the new one that'll be coming out, that one's going to be great, because he's going to destroy some more of our whiskey lore that we think is true. And I like the truth better. I think the truth is actually a better story anyways.
That's cool.
Joseph
had a question for you. When you guys have a 6 grain, what are the final 2? And I've got a comment about that too. Somebody made a funny comment the other day, but
the final 2. In terms of the mash bill, you cannot taste 6 grains. But all 6 grains are not there for flavor. One of them is there for texture, which is oat.
Oats.
Yes. Now oat by itself.
Right?
That's correct. It's culinary. You don't want a sauce that's thin. It's got to coat the palate. It has to have a nice texture. It has to look beautiful. You eat with your eyes first. It needs to smell amazing. And then it needs to be balanced on the palate. And how you interact with that whiskey or the sauce or what have you, it changes your pleasure and your enjoyment of it. So oats are super important. So you have corn, rye, oat, and you have 3 roasted malts. That's where the other 3 are. And
I
it's
had somebody argue me the other day on social media, or maybe even on YouTube, and said, malt is barley. I'm like, you can malt barley, but you can malt other grains too.
You can
know
malt
what
corn
malt
too.
means? I didn't go back at him. I just let him have it. But
yeah, let him have it. Well, and he may have said that because I hate barley. I don't know if he knows that. I don't like barley.
I think when we say malt and you say no barley, he's like, that's, counterintuitive.
Yeah, he thinks,
like,
well,
malt and it is barley.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's incorrect. Actually, the malts are rye and wheat. So there you go. No barley.
Tiffany, let's talk a little bit about your picks, but let's also talk about your other picks as well, because anybody that knows you has an appreciation for the picks you've done. I see Mike with Bird's Eye Bourbons on, so he and I are going to fight whenever I see him, because I didn't know that he had the Broad Branch coming to him, and I sent him a sample of it. But
I'll replenish that sample. I'll replenish that sample for you. I got you. Don't worry.
It's all good, baby. I'm gonna get a backup if I can. But man, whiskey, there's just so many bottles to get all the time. But so I mean, anybody that knows you, and I've only had 2 of your picks and went on the pick with you, but they really respect what you're doing. And from what I've seen, y'all have a remarkable palate, you and Joanna, and y'all are picking good stuff. So like, how long have you been picking barrels, and how did you kind of get into it and learn about it?
I mean, honestly, I got into bourbon by sheer accident. So I didn't really drink. Just wasn't my thing. A couple of times a year, I'd have a Moscow Mule. I was bougie about my ingredients. I love like Bundaberg and Fever Tree and Cube ginger beer, so I was pretty particular. But my brother had tried to get Joanna into bourbon and had given her some bourbon. and she was gone recruiting one July because they're gone for like 3 weeks in July, and I was bored, so I turned on the Neat documentary. My brother kept recommending the Neat documentary, and so I watched it, and I just got sucked in. And I think seeing Marianne Eaves on there, like as female to female, like she really just kind of captivated me. So I kept watching it while she was gone, because I just kept picking up more and more pieces of information. So then I went down this rabbit hole. I only have 2 speeds in life. I'm either not interested or I'm obsessed. And so I started researching, brands, history, all these different things. And so I went, called my brother. This was something for us to bond over, and started just picking up some small bottles here and there. So like July of 21, I think we had 5 bottles of bourbon. And we have over 400 now, which might be a little bit embarrassing. I just don't drink that often. I'm super busy. I really don't get to have a drink that often. I got COVID before Christmas, and my palate is still kind of jacked up. It's not where it needs to be. I've actually turned down some barrel picks so far this year for scheduling, and even in February, because I was like, my palate's not there. And that's, something that you brought up. So it just took time. The first couple of weeks, everything tasted like gasoline to me. So I say that because if you have a spouse that you're trying to get into bourbon and they don't like it, like, we can get them there. It's just a process. I sipped on a little bit every day for a couple of weeks. It took time. And then all of a sudden I could taste the vanilla and the caramel. And then as I started buying different things and tasting different things, I started learning about different flavors. I don't think I picked my first barrel until June of 2023. As far as like my brand, and that was with Starlight. Actually, Starlight is a fantastic pick experience because they have a farm and they take you out on the farm. You get to eat fruit and things like right off of the bush or the tree or whatever the case may be. So that was the first barrel I ever picked, and then I picked a pinhook barrel, and then got into just picking with different groups that I was a part of. So it just kind of cascaded from there. But the biggest thing for me is always, who am I picking for? So if I'm picking for a group versus picking for a club, picking for a store, there's an audience that you need that barrel to appeal to, because the barrel needs to sell. And a lot of times if you're picking for a group, you can go pick that funky one-off barrel that your whiskey nerds are really going to appreciate. But if you're going to stick that barrel in a store and you've got 200 plus bottles you need to sell, it can't really be that funky barrel. It's got to be something that's going to appeal to the masses. So for me, like when I think about that, the one thing that people tell me, especially with some of the stuff that I've picked this past year, is everybody talks about how balanced my picks are. So we're pretty analytical. Normally when I'm picking, I sit down and I'm writing notes and things, and I look at the nose, the palate, the finish. Seth's favorite thing is the dry glass. What does it smell like after everything's gone? So for me, I try to find something that's balanced, not necessarily something that is crazy from one aspect or the other. I love a wild nose. I love it when the nose takes you on a journey. I love it when the palate matches the nose, but I love it when everything is really balanced. So, but I think at this point I've probably picked 8 to 10 different barrels over the last couple of years. I thought I was going to have a bigger pick schedule this year, but if my palate doesn't get back on track, I'll just not pick anything. I'm not going to take a chance and messing something up if I can't get it back on track. So
for sure. And what you were saying there, is very similar to what happened with the Tiffany pick and then the Tiffany 2, right? Because I know like you and I and Joanna, we're really fond of the Tiffany 2, but it was a little bit more whiskey nerd type dig in and more complex. And Seth, was the Tiffany 1 and 2, were those the sibling barrels that we went at that were like 180, or was it another barrel? But I remember we had 2 barrels that were sibling barrels, came off the still at the same time, went in the same cooperage, touching in the rick house, and they were totally different flavor profiles.
I think 1 and 2 were sibling barrels.
And they were miles apart, both delicious, but it just blows me away that you have the same distillate that came off the still at the same time. And
Tiffany 1, for reference, was barrel 520, and Tiffany 2 was, I think, 496. Does that sound right, Seth?
They kind of run together.
Yep. Yeah, I got them. I got them right here. The bottles that we pulled that day, I still got the stickers on them.
I've got Seth, I was crazy about last year's 72 month gold. It was the first one that I'd ever had. I'd even put it up against some heavy hitters as far as flavor profile and enjoyment where I liked it. I felt like I liked it better than the Heaven Hill 18. I felt like I liked it as much as the George T. Stagg, given it wasn't Stagg for me, but flavor profile wise, it was so much better. And then this year's is just blowing that one out of the water. But Tiffany, I said all that to say is I've got this 72-month year, and a friend of mine, Brandon Green, came by and he tried the 468 barrel that I've got from 𝑬𝒐𝒃 that I rave about. He tried the gold, and he tried the Tiffany, the original Tiffany, and he liked this one better than the other two. So he liked this one better than that last year's 72-month. So that says a lot for this pick. And I'm drinking them side by side tonight. And I mean, this is no slouch by any stretch of imagination.
And the thing is what people have to understand is when you're drinking like the 72 or the 82, you're drinking 7 year ago skill level, right? So it makes total sense that something that's 4 years, 5 years could potentially be really, really exceptional. So that's not to say that the higher age statement is, that the sweet spot is lower. That's not true. What it is that the skill level's changing, making fewer mistakes, learning a lot, and applying all of those lessons in a real, thoughtful way.
So what does that mean about what you've barreled here recently when it comes to be 72, 80, 90 months, 100 months, wherever we get?
It's going to be crazy.
It's going to get crazy, man.
Yeah, it is. It is. Now, Tiffany had a couple things that is like I super, super agree with. One, you always pick in context. So our barrel picks are all unique, based on the group. So like I had a civic organization here recently, and not everybody's going to be a bourbon person at that thing. And so we just needed to find something that was kind of for everybody. And we did. And then you have your nerds, and the nerds come. I know what they want. They're going to want something cool, something wacky, something off profile, something that's, whatever. We'll try to find those when we can. So super agree with that. I also agree with if the palate matches the nose, like that is actually kind of rare, it seems to me, when I'm drinking all of these whiskeys.
For me too, yeah.
Like it's super
light nose
rare.
hits the palate pretty concentrated for me lately, and then a stout nose hits the palate kind of light, is what I'm finding recently.
And I've had, because I don't drink our products, I taste them, but I drink other people's products. And sometimes I'll find one with a great nose. I'm like, oh, this is a really great nose. And then on the palate, it's just such disappointment.
How does that happen, right?
It's like coming from a completely different universe. And I don't know why whiskey does that. That's so that just fascinates me. But when you do find one where the palate and the nose match, that's usually really exceptional whiskey. So that's one of the things. We got a question. Oh, earlier we had a question about what's coming to Spillway. Everyone's asking about Spillway. So April 5th.
4th, I think. Whatever the Saturday is.
It's Saturday. It's the first Saturday in April. Spillway, which is in a very impressive liquor store in Brandon, Mississippi. We are launching Dettling Rye at that event. So Vicki and I will be there. The first rye barrel will be there. 6 year, a little over 6 years. It's going to be age stated, 6 years. And we figured out this morning what barrel we're going to bring. And I think I told you 385. I might have the number wrong. It might be 386. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. But
that's right. It doesn't matter, guys. Y'all.
Yeah,
I don't. It's going to blow you away.
It's going to blow you away. So like everything that we're talking about in terms of learning and developing whiskey making skills for our climate, which is pretty unique. All of those things are kind of showcased in the rise, and that's indicating the direction that the brand is going, and that the whiskey quality is moving to. So I think it's I think the next couple 2-3 years are where it's really going to get bonkers. There's going to be a lot of really great stuff. As far as like special recipes, yeah, we don't do finishes. Super against that. But as far as recipes go, I told a group the other day, I was like,
I have to admit that I'm starting to like finished whiskey, Seth. I know that.
oh, it doesn't matter if you like it. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't
Well, you
matter if
told
they're
me
good.
you never admitted if you did like it. You can like it, but you
Oh,
still don't like it.
no. I had a dark arts that was fantastic.
Okay, I'm hearing a lot about that.
Absolutely killed it. It's delicious. Still don't care. It's finished whiskey. I can't force myself to care about it. I cannot. But I had a group here recently and someone asked me about it. I guess they maybe haven't seen me on social media, on these videos trashing finished whiskey. But I just said, look, when there's a finished whiskey coming out under the Dettling brand, I'm dead. Because it is just 100% not going to happen. Ever. Not interested in it. I mean, the first step is average whiskey. Okay, not interested. I don't care what the second step is. The first step is find something that's kind of average or maybe sucks a little bit. Not interested in that at all. I'm interested in great whiskey. That's what interests me, is great whiskey. And to use the ingredients and processes and the oak to do it, instead of trying to fix it with something after the fact, right?
Yeah, I think some people are using really good whiskey and finishing. I think Short Barrel is doing something very good with what they're sourcing and finishing over there, because they've got some delicious expressions. But I totally agree, and I've learned from you on that, and I get your thought process on it. And in my opinion, there's no way I would finish nor let anybody finish a Dettling. I mean, I was aggravated with you earlier this year because I'm doing my little barrel projects. I'm like, Seth, man, sell me some White Dog. Like, I want to finish it in a barrel. That'd be a really cool project. Like, it's like, man, you're not messing up my whiskey. And I hadn't messed up any yet, Seth, just so you know, it's coming along great. But the White Dog I did use, I was like, what if I messed that up? And you're like, it's already messed up. You can't hurt it. But no, I agree with you. I wouldn't finish a Dettling whiskey either. But the experimental type stuff like that you and Vicky are doing, that's going to be really unique and another SKU for you guys. So you'll have the cash drink, you'll have the rye, you'll have her stuff. So that's exciting. So that you're not all just one SKU, in my opinion.
Yeah. So you mentioned Vicky's thing. So Tiffany's first bourbon of ours was the human trafficking pick, right? And that was a white wheat, and the white wheat existed because the grain supplier changed their product codes. And when I reordered something, I don't even remember what it was I was ordering, but they sent me white wheat instead, and just gave me the whole pallet. It was like cheaper to just give it to me than send it back. 2,000 pounds of white wheat. And I ate the grain raw, and it was delicious. Well, I'm all about if the ingredients are good, if the ingredients are delicious, let's make some whiskey. So I wrote a mash bill out. Took like 2 minutes. Me and Craig, I wrote that sucker out, did a little math. I made sure the math equaled like 50 pounds or 55, whatever size the bag was. So it would make it super easy to make. And like, that's it. That's how much time I spent on it. And it made the white wheat, and white wheat is super delicious. Needed more age, but I know that better now than I did at the time. I thought it was good at the time, but now that I've you know, you'd see what 82 is. I mean, if a white wheat went to 82, it would just shock the world, I think. So when Vicky was wanting to make her own mash bill, you know, I told her just to go buy beers and drink beers and find a beer style she likes, and let's use that as a starting point. And she did. And the beer style she liked was Belgian, which is white wheat and oat. So, like, if you know me, I love oat. I put oat in everything. Can you turn that down?
I don't think we mentioned Seth hadn't slept since yesterday because he got called out late last night. Tiffany, I just poured some of your Broad Branch and drinking it beside Dettling. Now I'm getting like tons of like cashews and stuff on it. And it's crazy for that to be 141 proof, drinking it on a 114 proof. And it's not a huge jump in proof relatively to flavor. Like it, I don't know, this bottle special. I almost wish I could just get a case of them.
Yeah, I'm telling you. So that 141, it definitely consistently across the board, all you hear is it drinks about 120. So for a 141 to drink 120, and I've got a couple other hazmats from Dettling or from Broad Branch, and it's the same thing. Like none of them drink at that proof, so it's crazy. I think I told you I had one that was nose identical to Stag Junior 22A and my Frey Ranch pick. That was my whiskey of the year personally in 2023, and that was picked by Mary and Eves. So those three were different ages, different everything, different proofs, and they had the same nose and very similar palates. And again, like to talk about what craft whiskey can do, people need to be paying attention. They need to drink what's in the bottle and give it a shot and not pay attention to how old it is. I think that Broad Branch is like a little over 7 years.
That's right.
It was barreled in July, and I think they bottled it around September, so it's a little older than 7 years. But yeah, it's definitely wild. I gotta, I don't know if Seth's gotta take his fire call or not, but so is white wheat a happy accident then? So this human trafficking pick, Seth, did that end up being a happy accident?
I mean, it wasn't our accident. You know, it was the supplier's accident. But you know, I tasted the grain and just very quickly analyzed it and wrote a mash bill. So, I think I was kind of fortunate that the result was as good as it was. But you know, to me, that's not really accidental. That's just you doing what you do. You know, but with Vicky wanting to use the Belgian as inspiration. She went through a bunch of craft grains samples to come up with kind of like a flavor to supplement and try to make it unique. And she picked a caramel wheat from Germany that's just really beautiful. So they malt the wheat and they roast it until the sugar caramelizes, and then they stop roasting it. And it's like eating candy, this stuff. It is absolutely incredible. And so that's her bourbon is a white wheat bourbon, Southern Belle she calls it. And then I like the whiskey so much that I said we need to make a rye version of it. And we took all the corn, left the mash bill completely alone, took all of the corn out and replaced it with rye. So that'll be our first rye that has no corn.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so Dettling rye has a lot of corn in it. It's technically corn rye, which is a funny thing to say because it doesn't exist, but you know it is. It's a high oat rye too, if you want to get technical.
It exists in Atmore, Alabama, in one of those black.
Yeah, it super exists. It does now.
So this 82 months, man, I don't even know where's the timer on how long we've been going. Right at an hour. I just poured a little bit more, but that last sip that I just took versus the first sip, like how many bottles were yielded in this? Because I wish I bought all of them. I mean, look how I'm going through it. This is like I've had Tiffany's bottle for a lot longer, but I have so many Dettlings that I'm going to all of them. But I'm hitting this one like crazy. That's not fair, man. It's going to go away too soon because every sip is just a little different. Like you enjoy something a little different out of every sip. It's pulling me away.
You guys will have to help me out a little bit. I told you my palate has been jacked up since COVID, so we just cracked the gold tonight, and I've tried to let it sit, and I've sipped and smelled a little bit, but I'm trying to get it back. There's something that is so deep and so dark, and I can't decide if it's molasses or the darkest brown sugar I've ever had in my life, and maybe that is just more molasses, but my God, this is insane.
It's so insane.
And just
And every
spend time
time-
with it. Like,
Every time I sip it, I get something different.
it's all right to sit there and nose it for 15, 20 minutes. And, I'm a big fan of, because I got to learn how to sample a bunch of things. And so being efficient is super important. So one of the things I'm kind of I've become a fan of is not touching the glass when I'm doing my nose work.
I noticed you do that. You leave it on the table and just go to it.
Yeah, I should probably at some point make a video about that. I haven't seen anyone do this before.
I didn't know anything about it, so I came over with you and tried the rise that day, and I noticed y'all doing that, and I was like, well, that's unique.
Yeah, I made it up. Someone else may have made it up too. I don't know, but like I super made it up. I was just trying to be efficient with my time, and what I found was, okay, you take a glass. The glass has been sitting on the table, and it's interacting with the air in the glass, and you pick it up and carry it to your face, and you just washed all the air out of that cup. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So now when you nose, you're nosing the next thing that's coming off the whiskey, not the thing that's coming off while it was sitting there.
You missed it. Yeah.
You missed it. You missed a chapter. You skipped a page in the book.
I remember
Whereas,
you saying that when I was talking about pouring it, letting it sit and coming back to it, and you're like, no. Pour it, but keep it with you and go back and forth to it because you're going to miss something. Because you grabbed something here recently. You were nosing something. You were like, I hadn't gotten that before because I didn't spend enough time with it, but I got it this time.
Yep.
It was with a rise, something y'all were doing with that. You and Caleb were doing something with the rise recently, and you were like, man, I'd never gotten that, but I did get it today.
Yeah. Spearmint.
That's right. And I didn't get that off any of them that day.
None of them. And I haven't gotten spearmint since.
That's wild. Because it's just there for a minute, right? Just for a second. Like
full blown, off the charts, almost artificial spearmint. And I just couldn't believe it. And then I went back to it again, and it was spearmint with something else. And I went back to it again, spearmint gone. And I don't know. I just think that's cool. I like that to me, like my favorite whiskeys are that way. Those things just give me goosebumps because they're just so special.
If I could dance, I'd get up and dance every time I sipped it because that's what I want in a whiskey. Like when I first started collecting and buying whiskey to try to do reviews and stuff, I'm buying any and every bottle I can get my hands on because I'm like, man, I need content. I need to try all these whiskeys, see what I like. And now I'm learning that I only want to drink the juice that makes me dance, right? Like if it doesn't hit me and just make me want to move, then I don't want to fool with it. And that's what this 82 is doing. And I do think that your older expressions are getting a lot more fruit notes, and that's what Chase was talking about. And this, when I first opened it, I've never gotten cherry, like dark, like the dark black Luxardo type cherries. I've never gotten that off of Dettling, and that's what I got initially off of this. And I still get it off of the first pour, but not as much as I did off of that fresh crack pour. So it's like you were saying with the spearmint, like it's kind of there and then it's not.
Well, I'll tell you guys too. So, like I said, don't judge me tonight because I'm trying to get my palate back. But I haven't any idea what time is it. I don't even know how long this has been open. I would guess that this Dettling Gold has been open now for maybe an hour and a half. So I kept kind of going back to it, and to me personally, now granted, I've got 11 different bottles of Dettling. And the first time that I had the cherry soda, like old school, like sitting in a pharmacy where somebody was making your cherry soda with all the ingredients fresh, that was in that Dettling bottled and bond for me. So like obviously
Really?
some
Okay.
of my favorite notes are just, to me, what I call classic Dettling is you get the, the chocolate, the coffee, the cherry. So this last little bit that I had of the gold top, it was like every single one of my favorite Dettlings all put into one, but also like just on a different level. Like if you could take like whatever my favorites are and they are here, that gold is up here. It's every one of my favorite bottles, but like on a whole different level. Like you can't even put it on a level because it's so wild. So I love, Seth was pretty specific in the description and was like, this bottle's not for everybody, and it's not. Not everybody has a palate that they can distinguish things and be patient and wait on things. But
Patience.
I don't know if this gold top just cured my palate woes, but holy shit. Like, hey, Seth, so Joanna had a specific question about this gold top. So before we came and did our barrel pick, Seth doesn't do a lot of videos. He doesn't do a lot of information. There's not a lot of podcasts. You're not going to find Seth all over the internet. So one thing that we found before we came to do the pick was where most of the gold tops were coming from in the warehouses. So she wants to know, was this gold top in the same place in the warehouse as the last gold top? So that's that particular area that they were coming from. Did this one come from that area?
That particular one, 270, that barrel moved probably 3 times.
So you do rotate barrels some? I had somebody ask that, and I didn't think
I've seen that a couple times. People ask me about that.
Not really. I mean, the answer is no, kind of. Sometimes you have to rotate barrels because they're just in the way, So if you have a row and the row holds 4 barrels and 3 of them are gone, now you have 1 barrel that's like, let's just say it's 5 years old. Do you really want to put new make in front of it? That doesn't make any sense. So you kind of need to grab that 5-year-old barrel, get it out of the way, go put it somewhere where it's easy to access and keep up with, and then put all the new make in there. Does that make sense? So sometimes it's moving for that reason. Sometimes it's moving because I'm double oaking it and consolidating it. That's like super common.
And that's something people don't know that you do much is double oak, because you don't really label that or broadcast that this is double oak.
Never label it. Yeah, I never label it that way.
But that's a huge cost. Like people don't get that, right?
Yeah,
and then we talk about the grain sourcing and the way that you go get the grains versus having somebody deliver them, and you don't allow pesticide sprayed in the truck. Like there's a lot that goes into that.
There is. Everything's expensive. The amount of effort that goes into just our corn is far more work than just sourcing whiskey
and letting something that you could capitalize on at 46 48 months go to 82 months. Like there's a cost involved in that as well, right? And some
boys are
what I haven't done is last year's gold. I haven't tried it next to this year's gold.
Well, there were two. So do you know which one you have?
This is the one that went to ABC late last year. Remember, they wouldn't release it, and they finally did. So this one's 53.6.
God, that pissed me off.
It's 53.6, but I don't know what barrel it is. So it's 107.2 proof.
That one's going to be a real similar barrel to 270. But I've been asked about rye online. Yeah, rye will eventually appear online. I have a feeling that it's going to be, kind of a cluster when it does go online.
It'll sell within a few minutes, probably.
I know, and Justin this morning was like, "Man, this rye," because he was drinking the rye at our place, and we're trying to decide what what barrel to use for the launch. It was like, this bottle is going to be $1,000 on secondary, like the next day. As soon as people start drinking it, it's going to be $1,000. I'm just like, well, yeah, what are you going to do?
That was Justin and them trying it today.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm telling you, Seth. I mean, not that you don't know, but that rye's going to be.
Special.
It's super special, and
It's super special.
It's so much Dettling profile to it that if you drank them side by side, you're not going to know that. You're going to know it's Dettling. Like, I can't blind your stuff. Like the other night, I did a double oak blind. I didn't pick any of yours because I'll pick your stuff out from a mile away. It's that unique, and I try to tell people that. But that rye is going to be the complexity. Is it the rye that's giving it? And well, there again, we're at 6 years with it, right?
It's just experience, and this is the first whiskey that's going to be released where no one touched it, nothing got sold, nothing got picked. The entire production for the year had the exact same journey, and then I took the 8 barrels and I consolidated them into 4.5, and they just were untouched, and they just lived for 6 years in an extremely high heat environment. And this is the result. It's like a demi or a wine reduction, one of these chef techniques where you make a sauce, you start with something really big and you reduce it down to something really tiny and super concentrated. When you drink the rye, it's unlike any rye that is on the market or possibly has ever been on the market. We're drinking a lot of historic ryes right now. This morning I had 1994 Wild Turkey Christmas release rye. That is one of the all-time great ryes. And it's just man, it is just funky.
2020 as well.
Yes, we did, which was delicious.
Heavy hitter.
Yeah,
and
super heavy.
Like yours outdrank it at a lower proof. I mean, we're talking what 115, 118 proof versus a 135 proof or something like.
Yeah, it actually wasn't even close.
What did you think about the turkey though, relative to your stuff?
Oh, it's so unique and so special. And when you first of all, when you drink it, like, it's an honor to drink something like that. Like, it's so important. And it reminded me so much of the 1990 12-year cheesy gold foil wild turkey that I drank all of. Super special. Just that funk that they produced back during that era. Really, really amazing. And I think it's from oak. And so that's kind of one of the things I'm exploring right now is some oak concepts, because there actually are some subspecies of white oak that were in use during that period that are no longer in use. And that's something that we're researching right now at this stage. And we're going to see if we can put together some barrels made from single trees, kind of like 𝒊𝒂𝒃 oak project. You remember when they did that? Did anybody? Kind of like that, but it would, on a much smaller scale, and it's not only going to be coming from individual trees where the entire barrel is coming from one tree, but it's going to be very specific about that tree, like if it was old growth or if it was one of the kind of subspecies of American white oak. There's one that's super slow growing. There's one in particular that was super common until the 90s, and they just stopped using it for some reason. Why is that? Super fascinated by all those things. And it's going to be good. It's going to be exciting. If you like if you like Dettling, you're gonna love the rye, because what the rye isn't someone else's. It's not, oh well, it's so similar to, you know, X, Y, or Z. It just isn't. I mean, we've been
And
through, I
it's
don't know
not a
how
huge
many.
swing. It's not a huge swing on Dettling. Like, you can still tell that's Dettling. Like, that profile is undeniable.
Sometimes,
But the
sometimes
complexities and the flavor profiles that are popping off that rye are totally different than the bourbon.
it's the density of that rye. It's the layers of it. It's the texture. It's just really special. It's, I don't want to like oversell it, but like I get so excited I can't help myself. It's
I
just
don't think
really
I
special.
don't think you can, honestly. Like, you know, you say, man, that's the best cheeseburger I ever had, and people go there and they're like, it was okay. I don't think
Exactly.
you can ever sell that right. I don't think anybody's gonna sip it and be like, Seth's talking garbage. Like, they're gonna be like, holy
Well,
cow. Like,
like, you know, like on 270, you know, I wrote those distiller's notes, and I don't think it's that common in the industry for the distiller to like write a giant paragraph explaining to you why you shouldn't buy something.
they want you to buy it. They want it gone, right? Like,
Yeah,
like
I was like,
cycle inventory.
well, and it's not like some kind of weird like mind game reverse psychology trick. No, I
No, it's
really like. I meant everything I said. I meant all of it, 100%. And what I was trying to do is I wanted the customer that should have it. I wanted them to buy it.
for sure. And you wanted the person that got it to really understand it and enjoy it, and not just use
Correct.
it as a regular whiskey. I'm gonna tell you
Yeah,
something. So I haven't put these two.
don't buy it because it's rare or it's a special release or it has gold wax or you know what I mean? Like,
For sure.
I get all that. Like, people like that kind of stuff, but that's not what I was trying to avoid that. And I wanted people to
I just learned something, because I haven't put these two side by side. I don't know why I haven't done that yet, but this, when we talk exponential like aging, we're 10 months apart here. And you said that they should be similar. I see the similarities. This thing is light years ahead of this, but it's teaching me that when I taste something like this and I enjoy it so much, to understand that there's more to come, right? At some point, we're going to figure out, like, that's it. Like, cut it off. We can't age beyond that in Alabama. But I'm scared to see what 10 more months of this. I want to see what 5 more months of this would do.
yeah, well, it's season, so it's really summer, right?
Yeah.
That's where everything happens. That's one of the reasons why I'm so frustrated right now, anyways, is because the whiskey's just kind of like taking a nap. It just drives me crazy. Because in summertime, it's constantly evolving, and it's like watching a little 2-year-old grow up. Like, you know, if you miss a week, you've missed some of their development or like words that they're saying or whatever. The whiskey's like that in summertime. It's super exciting. It's, during the winter, it just kind of sucks.
But is it necessary? Like, does Mother Nature have that figured out? Because, you know, people use pressure cookers and all kind of things to
Yeah, I
exponentially
know.
age things. Like, is that damaging the whiskey? Does it need to rest and relax and go back at it? I mean,
I don't know. I don't know. It's under a vacuum. Most of the barrels are under a vacuum in the winter, like a very, very, very powerful vacuum. So if you just think about a porous, the porosity of the wood and it having intrusion, because, you know, whiskey intrudes, and then you're under an extremely powerful vacuum, then it must extract that. But it needs the summer. Like, the summer's where everything happens. And the Bird's Eye thinks the funk comes from old growth. We're going to know that pretty soon, because I have access to 150-year-old old growth American white oak, and it'll be a single oak project. So it'll be a tree. You'll see the tree. We'll have pictures of it, and we're going to follow the tree through its entire It'll be completely segregated. It'll fall through its entire process, and then it'll be here. It'll have, the head will have the information on it for what tree it was and where it was. And,
Put the coordinates on there. That would be cool.
the whole thing, like maybe QR code it. You ever been to a restaurant where like you order fish and you scan the QR code and you can actually see the boat and the captain's name and where they caught the fish and whatever? I don't know if it's bullshit or not, but like I think it's cool. Yeah, like it didn't come from Cambodia; it came from Gulf of America, and so it's just kind of like that. So we'll find out.
That'll be cool.
Only one barrel. Yes, we're launching the rye. I don't know what's going to happen with the rye. Okay, I got to be honest with you. And some of the barrels I perceive today are have room to grow. Okay, so we're not stopping at 6. Decided that this morning, and I've got one in particular, that short barrel that's high proof. That one's like super special, and I need to do something for our retailers. I need to do something for the people that have really supported us, the brick and mortars that have supported us over all these years. So I'm going to do something with the rye to take care of our retailers, make sure that they get something super special. We'll do something on the website because, let's be honest, not everybody can hit one of the, 6 stores or whatever that would get something.
I think that brutally honest pick guy that's coming there in May probably would like to pick a rye. I mean, I think he liked it. Maybe a good one for the website.
Hey, and that brutally honest guy, hopefully he throws me a bone back. Maybe he gets me an invite back on his pick.
Hey, you're absolutely welcome on my pick, Tiffany. The only reason I haven't said anything because I know it's a hype, but baby, you be there May 17th at 10 a.m. I'm assuming you be there for sure because I need all the help I can get.
Yes, you can make it.
Thank you, Brandon, because you gave me the gold from last year. You sent that sample. So that 72 month, we just opened that and got to taste the two side by side. And again, I think that's what the whiskey community is about, right? Like is sharing it with others, and something that I wouldn't have had a chance because I didn't have a chance to get that bottle. But man, one is like a fruit, that deep dark fruit bomb, that 72 month, and then you go into the gold from this year. Like holy wow, like that they are night and day difference. Like Brandon said, it makes you think like what happens with another 5 months, like what happens here. But I'll have to ask you guys because I don't smoke any cigars or anything. I'm not extremely familiar with tobacco, but I hear Brandon talk about English tobacco a lot. So on the gold from this year, the 82 month, the dry glass before it transitioned to sweet, it was tobacco. It was definitely a tobacco. I don't know if it was the English tobacco or not. That's more up y'all's alley, but thanks, Brandon, for sending that sample for us because we just cracked it open and tasted them side by side. That's
the least I could do for you, Tiffany, and all you've done for me. I really appreciate everything that you've done for me. Going on that barrel pick with you guys was huge. Like I really enjoyed that, and it taught me a ton. Like that day was crazy. Just the whole thing with those two barrels, the two sibling barrels being so far apart, that blew my mind. But that was a great day. So that, and I'm hoping to spend some time with you and Joanna in the future and learn a little bit more about tasting notes and nosing and stuff because I think y'all got that figured out. I know you're a little bit impaired at the moment. Hopefully you get that back. But no, you absolutely be there in May, both of y'all, and because I'd love to have y'all help me pick that because Seth's going to let me pick the rye. I already heard it. Putting that out before everybody right here. 51 people watching Seth. They hear you got to do it.
I think the rye picks probably will start in 2028.
Gotcha.
Something like that. Well, look, there's only like the first year of production's down to 4.5 barrels. So that's not really a pick.
Right.
In my view. I mean, it kind of is, but it's really not because they all will get picked. They're all good.
For sure.
It's just, so all I'm doing with them is I'm just kind of shepherding them. I decide okay, who's going to be first out of the gate? Who's going to let everybody know what this is about? Which one's the enthusiast one? Got to figure out which one can, try to reward some great customers. And then we've got a few that have some real promise that they need more time.
And that's so cool to me that
we're going to give it
you
to them.
see that and know that. And I mean, that's where this happened, right? Because I mean, that could have gotten out to a particular group a couple of years ago on a pick, right?
Yeah, for sure. And like, we've got a gold top rye. Like, that's not a problem. It's definitely going to be that short barrel, 116 proof. That stuff it's pretty special. That one will probably have to go online, would be my guess, because the yield's going to be really low.
Yeah.
And then
the coolest thing for me though is people hear you say this is special, that's special, but we also hear you say that one was disjointed, that wasn't the best one. Like, I think you speak the truth about your product, because I've heard somebody say, does Seth ever like speak negatively about any of his product? I was like, probably more so than he does positive. If you talk to him one-on-one.
Sure. I'm so bad.
Worst critic.
Well, I'm my worst critic. That's one of the reasons why I don't mind like negative comments. I'm like, I've said worse. It's it's fine. It's fine. It is a little annoying though when like the negative stuff is like on like a 2-year-old whiskey from 4 years ago. It's like you're an adult and you're drinking 80 proof 2-year-old whiskey. What, where did you go wrong in your life? Like, you bought the wrong thing and you're mad at me. Okay. Well, that stuff's all gone. Yeah, Colorado distribution. We have people that are patiently waiting for me to tell them yes. They're going to have to wait a while. We will go into Colorado. I think that's a great market, but the whiskey is what matters, and the age of the whiskey and consolidation and all these techniques, they require time and they require investment. They require a lot of patience and a lot of hard work. And I'm not in a hurry to do something average, as long as we can financially swing it. And one of the things that these special releases are helping us with, and super important for everyone to understand this. We 100% self-fund the operation, and all of the revenue is 100% put back into the operation. So I've never been paid a single penny. So whenever we do a special release and there's a premium price associated with it, I'm super picky about the whiskey meeting that standard, the high standard of the price being higher. But two, like, we really do actually need the money, and it just goes right back in. I'm building a brand new plant, and we're building a new rick house. So when these special releases come out, we're not being greedy about it. It's revenue that's needed, in a small operation like ours. So hopefully that helps. I know secondaries, in that 82 month, I think was, in the 500 plus range. So it's kind of a good deal at 250, honestly. But the Colorado folks, you can buy it direct from us when we're in stock. So like, that's not a problem.
I think, you talked about that. Obviously, I work for a small craft distillery in South Carolina as well. And, there seems to be two types of people that open craft distilleries. It's either somebody that's retired and they've already made a lot of money and have a lot of money, and they get to play with it. Like, this is almost like their play money. This is their hobby. And then there's people that go into it, that aren't starting off with millions of dollars in cash flow to start with. So I think that with you too, you're so particular about the grains, and it's a little bit different. Like, this is obviously a great time for you to talk about how particular you are about the grains and the way that you select the grains and how important the quality, it's like you said earlier, like, it's got to be something that you would actually want to eat And that's not the case with most distilleries, even most craft distilleries. You know, you might have some folks out there that are flirting, you know, maybe they use heirloom grains, maybe they use organic, things like that. But I don't know that anybody is as particular about all 6 grains like you are. And since these folks can't come see you in person, they can't drive up and visit the distillery and just hang out and talk with you, like, might be a good time to just kind of talk about like your grains and your process and how you pick those out.
So, you know, when groups are here making a barrel pick, make them eat some of the grains. Yeah, I don't know if anybody else does that on a distillery tour. We're like, here, eat this, you know. But we do that, and then I like to get their feedback. You know, one of the grains, someone always says it tastes like grape nuts, you know, or whatever. And these ingredients, raw grain, just eating them, and they're absolutely delicious. And that helps to kind of drive home a point that this culinary approach, you know, it's not just some, you know, name or phrase that I've just made up. Like, it's literally describes what happens here. It's the same thing a chef would do. You know, they're tasting all of the ingredients, and then they come up with the ratios, and they adjust their menu based on what's available, what's good. And that's what we do with the whiskey. And in fact, the rye label, I finished the back label today with all the words, which is by far like the hardest part. So you have this tiny little square, and you want to say 1,000 words, and you have 40 to 50 words that you can say. And I used that sort of culinary driven phrasing in that back label, but then I also kind of define it in that same sentence so that it won't leave, hopefully, a reader questioning what I'm talking about. Like they can kind of grasp it, I hope. I don't know. It's really difficult to say everything you want to say in 50 words. But I think we accomplished it. So that's really the focus on the rye, and moving forward is to be a little more educational with the consumer in terms of how we're different and why we're different, and how these approaches really matter. Because, like, everyone's been to a great restaurant, you know. I mean, everyone gets that. You know, when a chef just absolutely just nails it with something, oh, it's just magic. Right. And it's not an accident. They've been training, and they're working really, really, really hard trying to give you something good. And that's what they want. And that's where, you know, they get joy from that. And that's that more closely describes our approach to whiskey than anything I can think of. You know, it's just chef. It's just a chef of whiskey.
I think one of the things that excites me the most, I mean, obviously, you know, everything that's sold is single barrel. So there's going to be unique nuances to all of them, you know, but I keep talking to you about this bottle, which is the 468. And I keep telling you, if you've got any left around there, I want it. So this is something typical that I would have probably gotten off of an ABC shelf or anywhere else. I actually picked it up from you the day that we did Tiffany's pick. You had a couple there, and I was like, I just need, you know, some regular shelfer type Dettlings because I was going to gift one to a buddy. Luckily, he didn't accept it, and I got both of them. I sampled one of them out, unfortunately. But Seth, I'm telling you, this thing, I'm sipping it right now, is magnificent. And Tiffany, if you haven't tried to drink yours, your Tiffany one against last year's gold, you should do that, because I'm telling you, just this pick is neck and neck. Like your stuff as it ages, Seth, is just getting so much better. But obviously, nothing's holding a candle to this. But man, what's next year going to be like?
Yeah, we're moving the goalpost, right?
For sure.
Yeah, and so
sure.
I tell people, like, don't collect this stuff, drink it.
You told me that when I bought that gold last year because they just had a few left. They put them out at ABC. I caught 4 of them. Asked a buddy to go get it. Obviously, he wanted one. A couple other buddies wanted one, so I got one. And I was like, man, I want to hang on to it. And you're like, no, drink that. You know, there'll be more. There'll be better.
Oh, for
I'm
sure.
like, man, I don't know. It's gold, right? And then when I drank it, I was like, oh God, Seth, I've already opened it. Like I'm drinking through it. Like, when's the next gold coming? And you're like, it's coming. But I had no clue that this was coming. And that it really excites me when I see us going, you know, from this and me being like, Seth, I don't know if I can support it, to this, where I'm like, I can't wait to see what the next 5, 6, 12 months brings, so on and so forth, right? Like, you've learned so much from here to here, but the next ones to come that we don't even know about, like you always say, the best whiskey hadn't left the rick house yet. And
For sure.
some of it may not have even hit the still yet, right? Like,
Well, I say that knowing the whiskey that's in the buildings. So when I say the best whiskey hasn't left the building, I am thinking specifically about
certain barrels that you know about.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so
You
you know, it's like 82 is pretty special. It's special in its really unique way. Garrett was asking if we can do tasting notes. I'm trying to get better at that. So one of the things I wanted to do is, if we sell a barrel on our website, Dettling1867.com/shop, I want there to be tasting notes. And other than the one that Joanna did for the Tiffany pick, because I actually just didn't have the whiskey, and I'm like, I really want tasting notes. So she did the tasting notes for that, and did a great job with it. But I really want the tasting notes to be, to be present, so that you can kind of, everything's a single barrel, right? So if you have a barrel that's floral, and you don't like whiskey that's floral, then just pass on that one. Or if one's like a chocolate bomb and that's super exciting to you, you know, that you can buy with more confidence. So I think that's going to be helpful moving forward, to have more tasting notes and distiller's notes. When you're at the retail level, it's really like the retailer's responsibility to be able to communicate what something is. Almost everywhere they can open bottles and sample customers. That's pretty common. That's a great thing too, if you can do that. But when you're buying online, obviously you can't taste it, so you got to read the notes.
Right.
So I think that's something that I'm prioritizing. I went a little overboard on 270, but you know, I wrote all those tasting notes. Like, those are 100%. I wrote those notes, and the distiller's notes, obviously, I wrote those.
I think the biggest thing when we talk about notes that you've taught me that I never, I mean, I do it. I knows empty glasses, but you talk about an empty glass telling you more of the story that is there that you didn't know was there, kind of thing, right? You can articulate that better than I. But any of you guys, obviously anybody on here is a Dettling fan, but my thing is I like to have a glass of Dettling before I go to bed at night and leave it. And I don't do that every night, but leave it. And the next morning, I like to come back and nose it. So I'll nose it as it dried out before I go to sleep. But then when I wake up, I nose it again. And it's still giving off like tons of different flavors, but it's different than what it gave off when it was still not quite dry. So that whole dry glass thing is a thing.
Yeah, no, it super is. All of those notes are in the whiskey. And generally speaking, the proof is going to make it difficult or impossible for you to find all of those notes. But when the easy way to do it, especially if you're new to Dettling, like, just use 2 glasses. Smell the empty glass. Make sure the empty glass smells good. Like this one, I pulled out of this cabinet back here, and it actually smells like old wood. That's how this chest smells, because it was my great uncle Eddie's, and everybody's got like that old person in their family where like everything smelled old, and his cabinet smells old. So like I wouldn't use that glass, for example. So you got to smell your glassware. Make sure that the glassware is neutral. Pour the drink in one, and then pour that one into the other glass. So right off the bat, you're working with a full glass and an empty glass. And then with the empty glass, I like just hold it like this, like really, really, really firmly, and then just shake it. And just violently shake it. And when you nose it and it's ethanol, the ethanol is evaporating. So just be patient with it and just keep shaking, and then go back to nosing. And then there will be a moment where the whiskey just starts to communicate. It starts to tell you its whole story. And that's when you just need to just listen. And I do this on barrel picks. I'll get a glass going, and I'll wait for it to start to talk, and I'll just pass it, and it'll go all the way around the porch. And by the time it comes back to me and I nose it again, it's totally different than when I handed it off. So super cool.
Very.
And Tiffany, you should go to a tobacco store that sells real pipe tobacco in these big glass jars, and just smell the glass jar of tobacco. And you're just going to that's going to put that little program in your mind. And then when you smell these empty glasses, you're going to be like, yeah, okay, I totally get it. Because, a real fresh cut English tobacco is pungent. It's so pungent, but in a pleasant way. It has that kind of barnyard, earth, musk kind of sweet. Oh, it's so hard it's just a beautiful aroma, but it's very pungent. And I'd love for you to smell that. Just be like, oh, I see what they're talking about. And then when you smell an empty glass, you'll get it.
I need to do that too more. Like that's what we were talking about with, man, there again, what was the girl's name that came through and did the rise with us?
Jenna.
She was Jenna. Yeah. So she was telling me, she's like, man, I smell everything. She's like, I cook a ton. I obviously don't cook a whole lot, but I need to go to the cabinet, grab different spices and stuff like that. But she's also like super outdoorsy. So she's like, if I'm out camping, I'll just smell different things and try to lock that away. But she's pulling so many different things that I'm not pulling. So I need to do that more often.
Yeah, Jenna's kind of like a secret weapon. She's like this little nose ninja, and dude, like no one knows who she is, which is so funny because she ought to be a big deal. Honestly,
she could be if she wanted to be.
Yeah, if she wanted to be, because her palate is elite.
She taught me a lot of things.
In fact, she was nosing some whiskey, and Samuel and I were behind her. She couldn't see us, and she's like, "Oh, there's stone fruit in this." And me and Samuel looked at each other like, "That chick has got some real talent," because we both know it's got stone fruit in it. I was like, "You just got invited to the rye." And she's like, "Yay!" And so Jenna just has such, but her approach, like it's not an accident, right?
Right.
But she's in nature, she's just grabbing things and like just smelling them, or in a grocery store, or with ingredients and cooking and
all of those different like cooking spices that she was pulling out of your rye. Like I was like, how did you say that? Okay, that is right. That like, and then some of them I'm like, I'm not there. Like I don't know that, but maybe that is.
Well, I'm the same way. Sammy, what was that tea? Via Marte? Yerba Marte. Yerba Marte. Yerba Monte. Yerba Monte.
Google help.
but it's a tea. And one of the rye barrels had some of this component. And Samuel and Jen was like, "Oh yeah, 100%." Well, I didn't know what it was, so I didn't have that program in my brain. Here it is.
You went and got some?
Oh, that's so wow. Yeah, that's intense.
But that's what it takes. You know, I mean, like I bought like a sample kit of different scents, and they couldn't be further from what I understand tobacco or dark chocolate to be. Like this little kit is not it. Like you need the real stuff, like what Seth's doing there.
Yeah.
And you know,
herbal.
You're trying Tiffany's first pick against like that 468 that I'm so crazy over. That 468 is,
I just can't remember 468
distribution, and her pick is up there. It's so crazy how different single barrels can be. Like this thing is phenomenal. I see why my buddy likes it as much or more than last year's 72 month.
Someone asked earlier about how do they know when something's going to be for sale on our website. I need to figure out what to do about that. I don't know if I should tell people or not tell them. I've kind of fallen into the just don't tell them category. And I'll just drop stuff and it will just appear. And maybe I'll have like have a post on Instagram that doesn't really say what I mean. You know, I had the gold top in the snow.
Right.
And it was just a picture.
But it was a beautiful picture too. I don't know if you took that with a cell phone or what, but that picture was
my cell phone, yeah.
Clear.
And that's unfiltered. Beautiful. That photo is totally untouched because I don't do any filters on photos. And the message, if people will just learn my communication, okay, the message was gold's coming and it's still here. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Leather and tobacco are very similar. You know, leather is also that kind of rich earth, kind of sweet, and has a pungency to it as well. Very, 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 very similar aromas, honestly. And we do get leather. Rye will come out. Rye comes out at April 4th or 5th, whatever that Saturday is at Spillway in Brandon, Mississippi. That will be the launch. So yeah, that's coming up. That's going to be a big deal. There was 1,200 people there last year. So
it's going way up this year because of who's promoting it. It'll be
well.
3,000
off the record, it could be 2,000.
Yeah.
So a couple things are going to be different. I did get asked some questions about this, and I didn't know what the answer was, and I found out this morning. Okay, a couple things are different this year. All right. The producers are going to be outside in tents, and you can just come up and you can sample and you can talk or whatever. Whereas before, there was a 1 hour window in the store that you had to go in, and it was like it was really rushed because everyone's trying to, you know, get in and buy stuff, and because of fire marshals and things like that, there's safety concerns. So only a certain number of people can go in the store at a time, that kind of thing. So they're taking all that outside. So that will probably be beneficial. We will be there, and then when our time is up, we'll go inside the store, and the rye will be sold, and the tickets are free. You just show up, you get a ticket, one ticket per person, and then they call the numbers, and if your number's called, you go into the store for so many minutes. It's all allocated products. You can buy whatever you want, then you leave, and you can go back in if your number's drawn. So usually what happens is these people, they get to go in the store like 2, 3, 4 times, and they're just kind of cycling through. So you're going to get a chance to get something cool. Why not? You'll get the rye. I mean, that's, odds are, like if 2,000 people showed up and there's 200 bottles, then you have a 10% chance. But not everybody's going to be there for Dettling rye, right? So you just never know.
There's more to come, though.
Yeah, there's more to come, and and Justin said that someone's going to walk in, they're going to buy it, they're going to walk straight out into the parking lot, they're going to open the bottle, and then from there it's going to be like, it'll be on.
Once it gets in the glass for multiple people, dude, it's going to be crazy. Like, I don't know what your inventory looks like for what you've got. I know how many barrels we tasted, and it was few. So supply and demand is going to be an issue, which is a good thing for you, in my opinion, but it sucks for us as consumers. But
yeah, it does. It does, but
I'll get Tiffany to put you in the headlock come May if you don't let us pick a rye. So
it is a supply and demand issue, but the whiskey is worth it. So many of these allocated things, like I had one recent, comes in a wine bottle. I don't really want to say what it is, but it was a rye, and it's one of the ones that like you can't buy, and it's super expensive. And I absolutely hated it. I mean, it's one of the worst whiskeys I've ever put in my mouth. It literally tasted like a nail salon. That was my tasting notes. Nail salon, hospital floor. Gross. And this is like $1,000.
And I remember
And everywhere, the people that have them, they put it on the shelf and like they're super proud of it. I'm not going to do that to you, okay? It's going to be good. It's 100% going to be good. So if you do get it, open it, and it's still be delicious. I promise.
So we're coming up on 2 hours. I think I know Tiffany's an hour ahead of us. She looks tired. I know you're exhausted, Seth, from being up all night.
Yeah, I got to fire.
I could sit here and chat with you guys until the sun comes up for sure, because I'm that enthusiastic about Dettling. But Tiffany, do you have any closing notes? Because we've been going left and right, I know.
No, I mean, obviously, like I said, Seth doesn't do a lot of these, so I hope in general everybody just appreciates, like you said, we're coming up on 2 hours, so him taking time away from his day, his family, getting some sleep with everything that he does outside of the distillery as well. So this is the time that I love, just getting to talk about the stuff that you're not going to find this information anywhere on the internet. This is stuff coming straight from Seth. He keeps so much of that stuff just close to the vest. So for him to take time out of his day and hang out with us and answer folks' questions, it means a lot to me. I appreciate it. Obviously getting to bond with you guys over the pick itself and the whole pick experience. I told you how sacred the pick experience is to me. And when you invite people to come on a pick with you, those people mean something to you. And there's not a lot of distilleries that you can go pick and the owner is there, the owner and his wife. So, for them to be going through and do everything that they do, everything that they put into this distillery, I hope everybody appreciates this. These opportunities aren't going to come along a ton because they are so busy and they are focused on making great whiskey. Everybody keeps asking about these glasses. Nobody has said anything, but, there is no Dettling merch. You can't go visit Dettling in person. So you're not going to get those glasses unless at some point Seth changes his mind, but there is no merch. I don't even know how Brandon stole that glass at some point, so I sure don't have one either. So, but I just want to thank everybody that jumped on and hung out, for 2 hours with us and got to listen to all the fun stuff, all the behind the scenes. I think that's what makes these distilleries special. I hope that you'll continue to support Dettling, obviously online, some stuff in stores, but anything you can do to support craft distilleries in general, like I think is super important. Again, just thanks Seth, but also thanks Miss Vicky. I know she's somewhere in the background hanging out and waiting on you to get off here. Probably get some dinner and get to bed.
Vicky's probably asleep. I was talking to Seth earlier when we first got on, and so he got called out last night at 2 a.m., he and Samuel. And so they were out till 6 or 7 a.m., and then they had Justin and Josh show up this morning. So he hasn't slept. And then he took the time to be here with us to discuss this because he's that passionate about his stuff. And just for the record, I stole that glass, so Seth probably doesn't even know that I got it.
I'll give you one, Tiffany, when you come. Yeah, we don't do merch. We don't do merch. And it's kind of part of our brand identity because the focus is on whiskey. And if I spend my time on those things, then that message is false, right? We do have glassware, but that is for the barrel picks. That's for private barrel picks. And that is a very strategic thing because I'm not a fan of this shape for our whiskey.
It makes sense. I mean, that's so much more open. Obviously, I got a lot of funk on there, but that makes sense with the big belly, the big knob, the big opening.
Yeah, so we played around with several different glasses. I think this one's the best. So we bought some and we had our logo put on them, and that's cool. We don't sell them, and sometimes they leave.
I said, Seth, I want to make some T-shirts, man. Like, what can I do? I'll get your logo. I'll make the T-shirts. I'll manage it. And he's like, no, not gonna do it. Like, well, I'll get the Sharpie out and I'll make me a T-shirt with Dettling logo on it. But no, I get it because, like you and I were talking, you guys tried that in the beginning and it takes up a lot of time. People, hey, I lost my hat on a boat trip. Can you replace it? Or, hey, why don't you guys use XYZ T-shirt or hat or glass? Or it takes away from the time that used to be making whiskey, which is all you care about, right? I mean, we've already noted that you don't even want to sell whiskey. You just want to make it.
If your shirt doesn't fit, I don't care.
Quit eating.
Yeah. I don't. And so I don't want to pretend like I do because I super don't care. So I just focus on the whiskey, and then, we're not open for tours. Can't come. Can't taste anything. Can't buy anything.
Need to go get
anything. It's our way of keeping it as pure as possible, right? And then when the groups come, I'm not trying to sell you anything. Because nothing's for sale. But you can try some whiskey and you can buy that. And you're with us. It's not some, tour guide or whatever that's trying to just push you through. So we're kind of sticking to that kind of 1980s Kentucky barrel pick vibe.
Where else do you get to go for any of us? Taste the whiskey and then hug the neck of the distiller. Like, awesome. There couldn't be, you know what I mean? You don't do that anywhere else.
Sorry about that. Yeah, no, I mean, it's so awesome. And that's what we're going to try to keep to the greatest extent possible. There are some issues or some things I need to do better at. And I'm not sure what we're going to do about the online releases because that was kind of, that turned into Hunger Games pretty quick. That was 198 bottles at $250 a bottle, and it was like
just free for all 10-minute
in 10 minutes basically it's all gone.
You even limited it to one per.
Yeah, one per, and then I have probably 40 messages from people who were in checkout when it went out of stock.
And hey, I didn't receive my bottle. My bottle hadn't got here yet. They said my bottle's delivering. They didn't show my bottle. Man.
Well, we didn't get too many complaints on that. But we had 198 bottles for sale, and I literally have 40 people different people that messaged me that, hey, I don't know what happened. I was in checkout and then it was out of stock. They just couldn't type their information fast enough.
For sure. And Tiffany experienced the same thing with hers. Like her Tiffany 2 was like gone, and then they posted, hey, we've got a few left, and then those were gone, and it's wild how fast your stuff sells, but supply and demand is the thing. And I think as time goes on, we'll see what tells there, but it'll get better, right? As we get everything closer, you get everything closer to 6 years,
or I figure something out like a I don't know. I don't want to have like a club thing where that's where you get it, because then I got to manage that, and I don't want to.
Just make whiskey, Seth. Let us do everything else. You just make whiskey.
I'm just focusing on the whiskey, but I do want to be fair to people, and I do want people to get it that are going to enjoy it. And so I feel like it's sort of like, I don't want to sell the whiskey, but if I have to, kind of want to go to a good home, It's like the little dog you found that you really like, the little dog, but you can't keep it, so you just got to find a good home for it. That's kind of how I feel. The whiskey just needs to go to the right place, and hopefully not being bought by flippers. We did a lot on that. That's another topic for another day. But
just so you know, I have seen them go for $550 plus, so that says a lot for your whiskey that people are paying that for it. But I do hate secondary, because it's I hate the analogy, but Heather uses the analogy of Taylor Swift tickets because she loves Taylor Swift. And it's sad that Taylor's not making the money. She sells a ticket for $100 and they're selling it for $10,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
The money should go to the distiller. I hate to see everybody else making the money and the distiller not, because they don't know the struggles that you go through financially to get all this to market for us. So.
Right. And if we priced it at $550, then, you probably wouldn't sell all of them,
Well,
so
you sold them at $250 within minutes, brother.
Secondary is pricing on the fringe. Remember, I'm in the valuation business. So it's the little small sample way over to the edge of the market. That's where that number occurs. And it's an interesting number, and it's an important number to know as being in business. But it's not like there's 50 bottles for sale in secondary, right? There's just like a
handful. I pray that the majority of the people don't let them go. I encourage people, don't let your bottle go. Like, I have some people that I know that have them, and they're like, man, if I can make XYZ. I'm like, you're making money, you're spending money, you're missing out on phenomenal freaking whiskey. So, but it says a lot for you, Seth. Like, you come up from nothing. You didn't sell out. Like, you've stuck true to what you're doing, and people are willing to pay that for your bottle. So it tells another story on the other side as well. So I appreciate that too. You're doing a good.
I totally get that, and I understand if someone needs to sell. And I actually don't have a problem with that. I just don't want you to buy it because you want to flip it and make money.
Yeah, you don't even know what you're selling. Like, you're just selling it because somebody said it was something. Like, try it.
Yeah, I don't like that.
For sure. Well, look, man, I really appreciate it. We crossed the 2-hour mark.
Well, thank you, guys.
I know you need some sleep. Tiffany, I know you're an hour ahead of us. I'm so sorry. Thank you. It's 9 p.m. where you are. So I hope we can do this again soon. I really enjoyed it.
Hey, maybe it's time to live stream a barrel pick.
Got one coming.
Yeah. Well, that could happen. We'd have to watch what we say, though.
Seth's not good at that.
I know. I don't want to.
What we love most about you, Seth.
Yeah. I don't know if I like that idea. I'd have to think about what I'm saying every time before I say it.
You need to be able to edit a little bit.
We had a guy filming the last one, and every time I'd be like, hey, turn that off for just a second. I'm going to tell you guys something. And I would tell him something. Okay, now you can film again. just because. Anyway.
All right. Well, Tiffany, thank you so much. I know you've had a long day, Seth. I know you've had a long day. Appreciate both of you. Really enjoyed it. look forward to doing more in the future.
All right. Y'all have a good night. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
Take
guys.
care.
Thanks, Tiffany. Thanks, man.
See ya.
Bye, y'all.